time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
What is happening? It is a beautiful Tuesday. Oh, I'm on. I'm listening to myself on my computer.
Sounds beautiful, though.
What a rookie move, eh, Gage?
No. Fernand does it all the time.
Does he?
Yeah. Well, his ears are, I don't know how he hears anything. So.
Now, are you saying he's deaf?
Yes.
And he has these really high?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I can hear myself in his earphones.
Well,
yours are too, Gager. I used your headphones last week, and I just about blew out my eardrums in the first 3 seconds.
Oh, that's because someone else was in here. Eric likes it hot too. Yeah, if you're in here right after me, Cass, you would notice. I'm very delicate. You know
delicate,
me.
Sensitive. You're a sensitive guy. Sensitive guy.
Well, you got you got to see Joaquin off the top. You got Matt Kassian there. This is Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction. I am not Dustin Nielson. My name is Jay Milne. I'm filling in for Dusty, who I believe is making his way to Boston. He was through a bit of a gong show there over the weekend with travel delays and weather delays. And obviously, I think he was supposed to be going through Pearson Airport at some point. And I think we all know what happened there. That was just incredible with that
crazy
Delta plane ending up upside down. I mean, jeepers. Wow. So I believe he's on his way to Boston, so you're going to be stuck with me today. Two Guys and a Goalie is presented by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become a partner of their team. Visit gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work, or visit their page at indeed.ca. With the Next Person Up program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it's a career. GS Construction is presenting Two Guys and a Goalie on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. We've got Joaquin Gage, we've got Matt Kassian. Boys, how was the weekend, Gage? I'll start with you. Anything special happen this weekend?
Well, we had our fun spiel.
Yes.
That was awesome, Cass. It was next year. You gotta come. You gotta come. It's
yeah, I know.
It was fun. Even and you brought your family there. I met your girls, which was great. Nice. We had an amazing hockey game to watch. It was good. It was too cold, much too cold. I took my dog for a long walk, and I was just cursing the fact that my wife went and got another dog. But it was I had a pretty good weekend. My wife and I don't know if you know this, I've perfected the my margarita.
Yeah, Saturdays. So, that's your day, right?
Yeah. So my Megan and I, we had a few margaritas that I made, and we were just like sitting there. It goes, how did we not do this before? Like we just And I've got this special ice maker thing it's a perfect ice cube, and it goes in a little short glass, and we just like, this is it
round or is it a square?
No, it's square.
Okay.
But
now here's a question. Here's a question. Do you boil water before you put it in there so that it's like really clear?
So no, Cass, this my brother-in-law got me the best one. He always gets me the best gifts. Like,
gosh darn it.
So it's an insulated ice cube maker. So you have to put it in the freezer, right? But what happens is, and they're huge squares, like massive cubes, but how it works is it freezes from the top down, okay? So what that does is it pushes all the impurities of the ice, because when you get an ice cube out of the freezer, it's white in there, so it pushes those impurities all the way out of the ice cube.
Wow.
And so you have this perfect, crystal clear, massive cube that you're looking through. So it's crazy. And also my daughter. Oh, sorry, Cass. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if you're not fancy pants like that, I mean, that's I didn't know that exists. That's pretty sweet. But you can boil water, and if you boil the water and put it in there boiling, and then put it in, so you put the hot.
Oh,
if you just have like a normal ice maker, that gets you clear ones too. But it's not nearly as fancy or as cool because that's extra work, and your system sounds better, Gager.
It's I'll bring some in.
I would love that. Yeah,
it's crazy. Maybe we'll just have a margarita
Monday. How about that?
That would be good.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
Let's book it.
I don't like a lot of work getting done, but we could try.
The over under here is pretty low at the bar. It's set up right now, so I don't know
especially when Dusty's away. Who cares?
Efficiency would go down per se. Cass, did you have any margaritas this weekend?
No margaritas this weekend, unfortunately. Was working the cafe at church show and saw your sister-in-law, and I got to say she's way cooler than you are too.
Yeah.
So just as a note,
I believe you. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It was not a low-key weekend for us, but yeah, no margaritas for this guy. No margaritas for this guy, but that's okay. Not every weekend's a margarita weekend in the Kassian household. That's all right.
Well, that's fair because there was something else going on yesterday, and that was Canada v. Finland in a must-win game for Team Canada, and the big guns came out swinging early. Cass, just your general thoughts on that game. We'll get into a lot more, especially leading up to the big one, the final on Thursday, but let's just hone it in here and talk about a little bit right now about Canada versus Finland. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, great 50 minutes of hockey. They were fantastic, controlled everything, controlled the pace, controlled the opportunities, looked unbeatable for the first 50 minutes, and then just kind of fell apart. As you said, the big guns came out swinging and pushed into that lead, and you just kind of felt like, oh yeah, this one's over. Like heading into the third, I'm like, there's no way Finland has any chance of making a comeback. And then it just kind of blows up, and you see Finland make a push, and Canada kind of starts to scramble. And we'll talk about goaltending as we get into it later, but the puck starts going in, and then it went from being like, oh, this is just going to kind of lazily watch this last 10 minutes to being like, oh my goodness, what if they drop this last 10 minutes? But overall, there was a ton of really good stuff in that game from a possession standpoint. Defensively, they controlled it well again. No big mistakes, no big turnovers until the last 10 minutes in which panic completely set in. And it was just super, super scrambly, and Finland pushed, and their players played well, and Canada didn't really have an answer until Crosby kind of lucks out a little bit to score that empty netter.
Gage, truth be told, at the end of the second period, I left. We had an open gym time at our Dawson Junior Senior High, so we were going to go do a little shoot around. I had the notifications on my phone, but I'm like, this has been put to bed. And then ding, 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 and I'm thinking this is a joke. This can't really be happening. But yeah, I mean that was something. Now I'll ask you this, Gage. I think Cass summarized the game pretty well. It was fairly uneventful. If you're a Canada fan, I mean, they got on the board, they were controlling the game, but that ending, is that for you something that is an area of concern heading into the, you always like to finish in a better form than that, or was that just Finland squeezing at whatever they could grasp?
Well, I like Cass said, I loved the start of the game. You got your two big guys scoring early, really quickly, and kind of. I actually did the kind of same thing you did. I watched even a little bit more of the third period at the start and said, this game is completely over. It was well in hand. Then
I go make margaritas.
Yeah. And then I don't know what I was doing. I was doing some other stuff, and then I saw a highlight, and it was Sidney Crosby scoring into an empty netter. And I'm like, why is he scoring? Did they pull? This is weird. And then there was more celebration, and then I realized that Finland made a huge comeback. So then I go back and watch, and I just felt that, they had nothing to lose. Canada tightened up a little bit. But again, these are the best players on the planet. And Finland's move doesn't have some other guys, but their ability to take over a game, you got to... If there's a chance for one of these teams to make a comeback in a short amount of time, it's at this tournament, just with the amount of skill. Like those were some highly skilled goals too. Maybe you want the 1-save-5 hole on Granlund stopped by Binnington, but I like their resolve at the end. Crosby has a huge open ice hit to seal it, buries it down. This guy, I mean... We talked about it. He's taken over as Captain Canada here. I know the streak stopped at, I believe, 26 straight games. That is when he's wearing the sweater they've won. But hopefully I hope that history repeats itself from 2010, where they lose 3-1 to the Americans in the Olympics, but find a way to win on Thursday night.
Well, and speaking of Sidney Crosby, I mean, there's no doubt that there's a lot of juice left in this tank. If it was questioned whether, okay, maybe he'll do the Four Nations face-off and then hand off the captaincy to Connor McDavid. But, I mean, he's leading he's leading the tournament in points. He's got 5 points.
Yeah.
He's +2. I mean, what else do you want to ask from your captain? I mean, to deliver a big open ice hit on Granlund, their sniper from Finland, that showed a lot of resolve. But I guess my question, and Cass, I'll go back to you on this, is, is that something, as you both have played the game, is that something where they just let their foot off the gas a bit and Finland saw that and took advantage of it? Or did Finland really just ramp it up and say, let's give her what here in the last 5-10 minutes?
I think both. Like, Finland absolutely ramped it up and was like, let's just give her, there's nothing left to save this for. Like, let's go. And Canada was kind of like, oh, we got this in the bag, and sat back a little bit and was just like, we're comfortable. And then I think maybe even more than that, it was after Finland scored their first goal where they really were like, okay, hey, we're not done here. We're not done here. We're not. And that's going to be the talk on the bench there in, their sweet monotone language where they're like, we're not done here. And Canada was still just kind of like, oh, well, we got this. We still got a 3-goal lead. No big deal. And they just sat back a little bit and expected that, their talent would carry them. And ultimately it does. So they were right in that, but boy, they made it way closer than it needed to be with that. So it's like, it's a bit of both, Jay, like where they absolutely sat back and just kind of, I think they collapsed a little bit too far down into the net. Like they were a little less aggressive in the defensive zone. Like and I know you have to play a little softer when it's a 6-on-5 scenario. Like you can't just rush out at guys because you're essentially penalty killing. But I felt like they collapsed a little bit too much. Like it was just kind of like, okay, well, let's just collapse back, sit back, try to maybe protect the front a little bit. And then we're never really able to establish pressure in the defensive zone. And then when you can't do that, you can't establish any kind of pressure. When you get stuck out there, you get scrambly. And that's exactly what happened. So it was both. Finland made a great push, and they do have great players. As you said, Gage, if there's a tournament where a comeback like this is possible, it's like this because of the quality of both teams. And the Finnish guys, they made a push. And again, I think Canada just kind of sagged a little bit from an intensity standpoint and then wasn't able to execute in the defensive zone. And all of a sudden you're in one. But guys, at the end of the day, they get the job done. And Crosby, absolutely. 4 more years. That's all I have to say. 4 more years, Crosby. Yeah. 4 more years.
Momentum's such a powerful drug in sport, right? And just getting that little bit of extra juice, and you having a 3-goal lead, you get in kind of limbo of no man's land because you want to keep pushing, but there's also that hesitancy of not wanting to make a crucial mistake because I'm overzealous with going on the forecheck or going out of my way, right? So yeah, you could see that defensive shell start forming, and that's just it's a recipe for disaster when there's that much talent on a team, and give them the puck for that amount of time and start letting them feel good about themselves all the time, all of a sudden.
Which says a lot too, because for Oilers fans, okay, just know that this is the best players for Team Canada going against the best players for Team Finland, and that's still happening to Team Canada with Taves and Makar and Morrissey and Perret and the likes, right? So when the Oilers get hemmed in and the momentum. And that's kind of what I was hoping would come out, is that it is a beautiful thing to see a momentum switch as magnified as what happened at the end of that game, considering the level of the athletes that are involved in it, right?
I mean, I just have nothing but great things to say about this whole tournament, what we've been able to watch over. And I mean, I even watched I ended up watching a good portion of the U.S. Sweden game, and I was like, "This is a really good hockey game." Still, there was a lot of intensity on both sides. I go, what's going on here? And I think Swedes played with that reckless abandon that, you know what, we're going to go out there and try to win this thing. And if U.S. I think realized that if we don't play hard, these guys are going to spank us like 7-0 here. So there was kind of a little bit of pushback. So. I mean, I've just had a blast watching this. I've become a fan again, in a sense, watching Canada. I know Tommy on the morning show was talking. I think I've referred to we and us and put us in the same category. So it's been great. I can't wait for Thursday night, man. It's just going to be so much fun to throw on a Canada jersey or something and watch this game. It's fantastic.
Well, Cass, you alluded to it earlier, and I'd like to get into that right now, is the play of Canada's, I guess we have to call it, number one goaltender, Jordan Binnington. Surprised because we haven't talked since the opener or since they went in, and yes, they beat Sweden, but not Binnington's best game. I mean, right now Binnington is by far the worst starting goaltender in the Four Nations faceoff. 2.6 goals against with an .892 save percentage, and to add on, a couple. I mean, the second Granlund goal, nobody's stopping that. But there were a couple throughout the tournament goals that if it was Stu Skinner letting those goals in, he'd be roasted. He'd be run out of town. Roasted. How do we trade him to Anaheim?
Well, at least now that they won't ask to trade Binnington for Stu Skinner because they think it's the same.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's the plus. That's the big plus coming out of this. Well, we did hot takes when we were on last week with Reed, Gage and I.
Reed, with Reed, yeah.
It was with Reed, yeah. And one of my hot takes was that Canada ends up with the best goals against. And it was, a hot take for a reason that it was, kind of outlandish and out there. It might happen. And boy, was I complete on the opposite end of that. So, which is fine. That's why it's a hot take. It's like, the chances are low, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen. He hasn't been very good. There's been moments where he's made some good saves, but he has underperformed for where you'd like him to be as Canada. And you got to think, like in a championship game here, a winner-take-all one game against the U.S., he's kind of been at the pace of he's letting in one pretty weak goal a game. Like that's kind of where he's at right now. And in a game that is probably going to be just as tight as that first game was against the U.S., where it was really one mistake. That loss against the U.S., it was one mistake. You had a bad change, and that loses you the hockey game. You can't have any of those happen. So his play hasn't been there. Now I highly doubt they switch up the goaltending here. Like he's going to start against the U.S. Kind of speaks to you about where Team Canada or Canada's goaltending is at right now, and that is just gonna. And we knew that going in was going to be a little suspect. My dad sent me, as I know, the memes have been flying everywhere. He sent me one where it was like the dragon from Game of Thrones, and it was like Canada's offense. It was like a different dragon that was really cool looking. That was like Canada's defense, and then it had Canada's goaltending, and it was like a children's sketch of a dragon that was done very, very poorly. And it's kind of like that, where it's just like, that's the suspect part right now of this hockey team. And if there's anything going into this U.S. game that gives me pause, it's the play of Jordan Binnington. Now he's fully capable of having a night and of being a showstopper and winning them a hockey game and winning them, the championship in this Four Nations. But he hasn't shown it so far.
Cass, wouldn't you say, like, out of the last 2 years, I would say, like, Binnington's played most against the Oilers. And when I've watched him in those games, he's been a difference maker. Like, and he has played better in those games than I would say he's played at this tournament. At first, like I said, I thought that because both Canadian goaltenders have played at the highest pressure situation, especially Binnington being in a Game 7 for the Stanley Cup, and performing outstandingly. I thought that Canadian goaltenders just had to be good, but now I've changed. I've kind of changed the other way. I think that for Canada to win on Thursday night, Jordan Binnington has to be the first star of that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's.
I don't. Yeah.
Do you think?
Does he? Would you say he has to steal that game for them?
Almost
in that goalie
my
era.
question.
He has to be a difference maker and make some saves that he probably shouldn't, and make the saves that he's supposed to. Right?
How about this? He has to outplay Hellebuck.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
That to me, it's like I still wouldn't say he has to be great. Maybe he does, but the rest of the team is good enough that I think you have to be better than Hellebuck. Like you have to make the one extra save that Hellebuck doesn't make, which may mean you have to be great, I guess.
That's just it, right? I mean, and I'm trying to draw parallels to what we see on the Nasty Chat every day and in the River Cree or Paris Jewelers inbox. That the Oilers are hot. They're one of the best teams in the league, but there's still that problem with Stu Skinner that he's not one of the top 5 or top 10 goaltenders in the NHL. But in this case, if Binnington can just go out and get the win on Thursday, does any of this matter? Does and to add to that, well, this is kind of a 2-part question, and I'll throw it to you first, Gage. Were you surprised that Adin Hill did not get a sniff in this tournament?
Yeah, I was. But John Cooper did say that he was picking one guy and going with him, right? And the opportunity didn't present itself to throw in your second guy, like we saw with Jake Ottinger against the Swedes in a game that didn't matter, right? So there's that. There's playing in a must-win situation already for Binnington, right? Not that the other ones weren't for Hellebuck, but yeah, it's funny because when you watch Connor Hellebuck play, he's so technically sound in net. Like his positioning is always perfect with the ability to make the big save. Like, it seems like you always have to do something a little bit more special to get the puck past him, right? There's very few leaky goals that get past him. So that's why I thought maybe the possibility of seeing Hill in the third game, just because it's a big body, he takes up a lot of net, and he plays more of that kind of, I think, when he's on that Hellebuck style, where Binnington's kind of a little bit of a throwback, where he's a little bit more active in net, but he has the flair to make huge saves as well, as we've seen against the Oilers for the last few. So they're kind of contrasting styles in a sense, but I still think I got to give the edge to Binnington in this game, just because he has been in like we said, that Stanley Cup winning situation, and he's come out on top. Hellebuck hasn't played at that level. He's never gotten to where a game, I don't think, means this much in his career yet.
Well, Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think so much of it for me comes down to you're wanting to instill confidence in your goaltender in a short period of time. Right? Like it's such a short tournament where the most you're playing is 4 games, and you're not playing back-to-backs. And so it's like, okay, we're going to try to have consistency for our players as well, from a communication standpoint, from everything. I mean, it's such a short window, and it's not like he's played horrible. So it's not like he played so bad we're like, we got to get this guy out of here and get Hill in. So I'm not overly surprised. Like I thought maybe, and to me, this kind of would have been the case. Like if they would have won first game in regulation, if they would have beat the USA, if they would have known heading into game 3 that you're going to be in the finals, maybe you put in the other guy and let him play one. But because it was, you win an OT, so you get that, which is good. You get a couple points. You're playing the US, so you're not going to switch it up after you just won a game against the US, and then you lost that one. And then all of a sudden it's like a must win in regulation game. You're not going to all of a sudden switch it up. So it's not surprising to me ultimately that he's going to run the table here.
Well, and as you both know, obviously there's 5 other players on the ice other than the goaltender. And is that the question we should be asking more of? Against USA in that game on Saturday night, yeah, the fist flew. That was great. It was a knock 'em, sock 'em, rock 'em, whatever you want to call it. That was something to see.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, Canada and all that offensive power and all those big names that they have in their top 6 only put 1 goal up. Okay, so is that something that maybe we should look at this and say, okay, Binnington maybe doesn't have to be perfect and pitch a shutout, but what do you think the over-under is on goals as to what he can allow? And let's face it, the Canadian forwards need to do a better job of putting pucks behind Hellebuck as well. Are we talking 2 goals here? That would be the max, or what do you think, Cass?
I think 2, and I think 2. And you're probably putting the same number for Hellebuck, right?
Sure.
Like it's going to be another tight checking game. U.S. supports the puck well. They have good defense. Now McAvoy not playing, that's he's pretty good from a defensive standpoint for Team USA. But it looks like Quinn Hughes is going to be in the lineup for them as well. So. That's a big boon for them. And, you didn't have Cale Makar on the Canadian side that first game against U.S. That's a big boon for you heading into this game. But I think for either team, like the margin of error in this game is going to be tiny. And for as much as fun as it would be to say, like, let's have like a 6-5 shootout here, back and forth, that's not the type of game we most likely see. Like, it's going to be another high speed,
3-2,
low mistake, 3-2, 2-1 type of game. So if I had to put an over-under on it, how much he can allow, I'm going at 2. Like, if they have 25 to 28 shots, the U.S. does, and he lets in 2 goals, I think you're in a pretty good spot. Now Canada, as you said, the forwards, the big boys, they got to find a way. That power play, if they get a power play, has to find a way. And the biggest thing, guys, heading into this is going to be when you have a grade A opportunity, you have to bury, because you just know there are not going to be very many of those to be had.
Yeah, I think the Hughes thing, Cass, the U.S. needs one more injury, right?
Yeah, they have their 6 defensemen that they still have. Obviously, McAvoy's out, but just like what happened with Team Canada, you need to have somebody else either get sick, and I'll put that in air quotes, or actually have an injury. Now, that was part of my hire to fire it. So we're going to dig into the Quinn Hughes stuff a bit here, and I've been keeping an eye. Elliot Friedman has been kind of the point man on this. He said 2 hours ago, I'm told another injury is needed for Quinn Hughes to play. So we'll dive into that. Don't you worry. We got lots of talk on that. But I wanted to talk in generalities about the whole tournament. I remember the selection process, and I myself was just
I back in September.
Yeah, way back in September. Well, it was even the originals that they named before, and noted. I was not impressed that they just said, "Hey, Brad Marchand, you're on the team." I thought maybe there were other players that could bring more, but this is the team that Canada has right now. So it looks like we're going to have to roll with that, obviously. But Gage, I see Cass is down here, so we'll have to get Hernan back in here and see if he can reconnect Cass.
If Hernan wants to work, yeah.
Who would you say is Canada's...
I'm back. I don't know what happened there. I was still here, but my camera shut off.
I just want to know, who would you guys say has been the player that has overachieved the most, in your opinion, for Team Canada, and who has underachieved the most? Gager, we'll kick it to you.
Oh, gosh. Well, obviously overachieved. I don't know if it's overachieved. It's kind of...
I know what you're saying.
It's expected, but maybe it's just a little bit above expectation. That's Sidney Crosby.
Sidney Crosby.
He's... There's no doubt, like, who's going to wear the C? And you hear guys, oh, it's Sidney. I go, yeah, okay, but maybe there's a handoff, passing of the torch kind of thing. No, the C is cemented on his chest for this team. What he's done over these first few games, it sends chills down the spine, and you get goosebumps looking at what he's been able to do. That connection with him and McKinnon is great. for someone that maybe, you would expect a little bit more from. I mean, obviously you could go to the goaltending, but you've still won some games and you've got a chance. So I don't think you can go to the goaltending on this side, but I think I have to, I'm sorry, Leaf fans, but I have to look at Mitch Marner.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting reading comments from Maple Leaf fans saying that's what you get from Mitch Marner. It can be a very lackluster 55 minutes, but then he has 2 points and they win the game and he scores the game winner, right? That's what you kind of see. I'd like to see a little bit more from him offensively, obviously, and just kind of making a little bit more of a difference, just on both sides. I was excited to see him and Connor played like two really skilled guys but it just sometimes that doesn't really work, that chemistry that you can achieve with certain players. It's just not there. So I'm going to have to go with Mitch.
Cass?
Yeah, I mean the goaltending is the easy one. We already talked about that. I can't disagree with Sidney Crosby. Again, should we be surprised? Maybe not, but like he has overperformed. He's been sit, and it's been great. So easy one would be to say Binnington and goaltending, but I think we knew that could be suspect going in. So I'm going to pick someone else. I'm going to go so far player that has not quite been there for me like we hoped he would, and has underperformed, would be Devin Taves on the back end.
Good.
I'd pick him where, overall, I think he's -3, just -1. Just pull it up again here. -1 in the tournament, but 0 goals, 0 assists, -1, playing about 23 minutes a game on average. So it's not like he's not getting ice time. Like he's playing a lot, but just offensively hasn't found a way to turn anything into offense. And so if I go, okay, here's a guy, we don't expect him to be Cale Makar, nor should we, but we expect, in a tournament like this, that you still are going to be able to find a way to help produce offense for a player that does help produce offense for the Colorado Avalanche. I just kind of go, I expected a little bit more from Devin Taves. Again, still Binnington would be my first pick, but if I got to find someone else, I'm probably leaning towards Taves.
I had to, look at a player like Brandon Hagel, who's -3 throughout the 3 games. And I always look back to this because I said it throughout the summer when they were coming out with these, who made it, who didn't. And, you have a guy like Mark Scheifele that's sitting at home, right? 63 points in 56 games. And then you have, it's a small sample size. So are we picking the nit? Absolutely. Yeah. We're doing it because it's topical. It's hot. Everybody wants to hear about it and they want your takes on it. But yeah, I'd say a guy like Brandon Hagel, who is, hasn't stood out. And if you're not standing out in a tournament like this, you're usually on the bottom side of this conversation. Lineup combinations, fellas. Before we get into hire it or fire it, I printed out the lines for Gage and I. Do you foresee USA rolling out the same lines as they did against Team Canada? Because Canada has made changes to their lineup since they played US, specifically getting Braden Point up with McDavid and Stone. What do you guys see? Do you see them kind of trying to match physicality to physicality, or are they just going to let these horses run? Cass, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, so much of it is going to depend on how significant are some of those injuries for Team USA. Are both the Kachuk brothers or one of them going to play? They may be forced in some way here to have lines that are a little bit different. So we'll have to see. And I think if we go back, generally speaking, if we were just going to say, okay, let's assume lineups are close to or similar, then we're going to see the same thing, right? And I think both teams are not afraid to go power on power, and you roll. Now you're going to play your top guys, the McKinnon line, the McDavid line. You're going to play those lines a little bit more, but you still trust as a whole the quality and the capacity of everybody. I mean, it's not like you have a sucky fourth line for either of these teams. It's just brutal and just going to get absolutely ripped apart. So on the US end, it just depends on those injuries. How banged up are guys? What are you going to get out of them? That to me is going to be a big driver, or whether or not we see any differences in how the US in particular approaches this one. Canada, you'll probably see them start the game with the same way that they finished against Finland.
Yeah, I mean, you already the McAvoy is going. It's going to hurt them. Like he defended Connor very well, right, and was very physical. Now, I mean, I actually liked Jake Sanderson's game. Like he's a really good defender.
He's really good.
He's
guys.
really good.
Yeah.
So I think a lot depends. I know Brady didn't play, kind of held back. I think he'll be fine though. I think it's just kind of the bumps and bruises, maintenance type of thing. Matthew Tkachuk interests me a little bit more because when you watch when he went off, like there was a turn and then kind of a, that little, that stabbing kind of pain. And he kind of
Winced.
he winced and then shifted his weight and then barely pushed to go off. And you could see him, I'm done. Like I can't go anymore. And that's a little concerning, right? That's to me, that seems like it's something a little bit more. I could be wrong. And I think that's gonna just those two emotional guys on your team. Those are two guys that you want in your dressing room, right? They're willing to do anything to win a hockey game for you. So it's interesting. They're still good enough to win, though. It's just even with those types of losses, they're still a good enough team. I think that they can definitely cause some issues for Team Canada.
Well, and if you're dinged up, you never know the severity of it. Hockey's very good at keeping that, inside the locker room. But Elliot Friedman did report earlier today that Coach Mike Sullivan of the USA squad says, yes, Quinn Hughes is coming to join Team USA. Mm-hmm. Sullivan also said it. He anticipated Austin Matthews will be available for the game, and the Tkachuk brothers are also expected to play. So it looks like they're going to have all guns firing. Yeah. But if that, Matthew Tkachuk is dinged up and holding things back, and the flip side of this, and that's a broader conversation as well, leading into this was the, what if the player gets injured? What are Florida fans, what are the Florida faithful saying right now in their own sportscasts? And should Matthew Tkachuk play? Should he be pulled from the tournament for the sake of hopefully having a long-term or a longer run into the playoffs again? Cass, do you think that is something that these players think about right now? And I know we've bagged on the Four Nations. It's not the Olympics. It's not the World Cup. But clearly it is something. We can feel it. You can feel it online. You can feel it in the arenas with what's going on. This is something. Cass, is that? Do you think Matthew Tkachuk? Let's just hone in on him. Is that something he thinks about, or is it just this? I'm wearing Team USA jersey. Let's go.
Well, I think the USA, and I married an American. We want to talk about national pride. They have some. And I think even with what we've seen where the stakes, and you could talk about what's going on politically and economically and everything in the news, but the stakes are higher emotionally than maybe they would be if all that stuff in the background wasn't going on. And I think that just drives players. I don't think, and maybe there are some, or undoubtedly there are some, like Florida Panther fans that are like, I want him to be healthy. But those same fans are like, I want to be the best in the world. Go USA, USA, that are going to be hoping that the Canadian anthem gets booed. Like that's coming. And so I just, for players that want to win and that have a lot of pride in not just trying to win a Stanley Cup, but playing for their country and being the best in the world, if they can go, they will go. So yeah, I don't think Matthew Tkachuk's worried at this point about being injured, and it depends on what it is too and how severe it is. If it's something where it's like, this could turn into something, well, maybe you got a little bit of that. But I think they're more looking at this going like, we want to be Canada, we want to win this thing, we want to have our people boo the anthem and then cheer at the end of the game. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're going for. But yeah, and on the Quinn Hughes front, I wouldn't be surprised if someone gets hurt today in practice,
fell off
or gets sick.
The curb.
Well, yeah, let's get into it as we go into hire it or fire it for GS Construction. GS Construction is hiring now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca or their page on Indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction today. You are watching Two Guys and a Goalie on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. I'm Jay Milne. We got Cass and Gager here. Let's dive into Hire It or Fire It. Cass, I'll go to you first, and then Gage, you can come around and answer it your way. Hire it or fire it. Quinn Hughes will be on the bench for Thursday's Four Nations face-off final. Cass.
Hire it. Someone gets the sniffles. And you know what? You know what? Before, because I know there was people in the nasty chat who were like, this is such BS. I don't care. Right? Like, he's one of the best defensemen in the world. We want to see best on best. I get like not being able to rotate everybody and massively change your roster, but it's like Quinn Hughes was hurt going in and he's going to be available. Let the guy play. Like, let him play. I don't care if somebody gets the sniffles. I want to see Quinn Hughes out there. I want to see the best on best. I want to see those two teams go against each other. I want to see Hughes versus McCarr. Like, I want to see that. So I'm here for it. I'm going to hire it. Someone gets sick. He's on the bench.
Yeah, I think I'll have to hire it too. I'm in the same boat. I want to see best on best. He's a great defender. I just have a question for Cass real quick though. So being in a dual citizenship marriage right now, is it hard watching these games? Has your wife imposed any tariffs over the last week and a half?
There have been severe tariffs. We had a moment that first game where, because the girls, born in Canada, they've been raised in Canada. They went, boo, USA, go Canada. And my wife was just like dead cold, like, what did you just say? And then they just kind of all stopped. She's like, you realize, like, mom's American. They're like, yeah, from Texas. They're like, yeah. So she's from the US. And they're just kind of like staring at her. And she with, I don't want to say with murder in her eyes because it wasn't murder, but she was just like, you better not. You better not boo Team USA again. So it was like a funny little, just like a little quick where the kids just like froze because mom used her like, hey, everyone's going to be in big trouble standpoint. And there's me like giggling in the corner because the girls are booing. And I was like, oh, like I don't want any unnecessary tariffs thrown on the marriage. So I probably should pump the brakes a little bit of that and still cheer for Canada. And she was obviously quite gleeful when the USA won. She basically looked at me and was like, how's that for you? And I was like, it was still a really good game. She's like, yeah, but USA's the best. And I was like, all right. But yeah.
Well,
yeah, our girls had a little learning moment, as it were.
Thoughts and prayers to you, brother, for your tariffs in the Kassian household.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what you're living through right now. Hire it or fire it, Gage. We'll start with you. Once again, this is presented by GS Construction. Hire it or fire it, Gages. The gloves drop in the first minute of the final on Thursday.
I'm going to hire it.
Okay.
I think it's just the emotional charge of this game. I think it's been talked about a lot more in the U.S. when we've had multiple different reporters from down south, and it wasn't a lot of buzz, but now you see people are talking about this. They were talking about it at the NBA All-Star game, right? This whole thing. So, yeah, I'm going to say emotions get the better of at some point. I think there is in the first bit. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Cass, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to fire it because I think it's the final game. And guys, from an injury standpoint, it's going to be intense, absolutely. But I just don't think you're going to see the same three fights at the start. Of course, there's potential you see that. But I think guys, not that they're going to be on their best behavior, but they're just want to straight up play. I think that's how I kind of lean. I hope I'm completely wrong.
Yeah,
I hope there's four fights.
Yeah, I think
would be unbelievable.
The start to that game on Saturday night was just, we were at the fun spiel, and between Coob throwing rocks off the side of the sheet and the hockey game, everybody was surrounding these TVs, which were just in the middle of the rink. And at one point, I think you were involved. You were skipping at the time, and you were coming back because we had started another end. And I said, Gage, there's been 3 fights in a row, and you couldn't believe it.
No, I knew there was one, and then I thought, is there a goal? And I was no goal, and then this is the 3 fights. I was like, what? And I'm like, But I was focused.
You were laser. You were laser. Gager held us
Laser.
together there. And then Belzy came in and did a good job.
Did
in
he?
your absence.
Okay, good.
He really did.
Good.
And young Coob did pretty well, I must say.
He came around.
Through.
He came
at
around.
the worst opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, be good at the start when we're trying to win, but when we want to mail it in, Coob.
Yeah.
I must admit I had some issues with that too. But hire to fire it. This is our last one here, Cass. I'll go to you. I'm going to bring this back to the Oilers because we were talking out in the bullpen earlier, Gage, and my goodness, the Oilers play on Saturday. This tournament's over, and you're right back into the regular season and a very crucial part of that season, to say the least. The Oilers finished February with 4 road games. So they got Saturday in Philly, Sunday in Washington, Tuesday in Tampa Bay, and Thursday in Florida. Not exactly easy competition. Hire to fire it, Cass. Would the Oilers be, and I put in brackets, secretly okay or happy going 500 over these next 4 games?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. I'm going to hire it. I think you are. And that's just with the teams you're playing, right? Like you're playing Washington, you're playing Florida. Those are the big 2 where it's not like, in a weird morning game, that first game back, you don't really know how that's going to go. Morning game and first game back after a long break. So I think you're happy on the road going 2-2 this trip. I think you are. You may not profess that you're happy, but 4 games to start off this, coming out of the break, you go 2-2. I think you're like, okay, we're all right. We're all right. I think that's going to be the mentality. Fans might hate that. I might be getting roasted right now on the inbox, but that's okay. I think they would be happy with that.
I'll hire it, but I think obviously they're going to want a little bit more, right? These types of points that you can gain at this time of the year. Like everyone's at a pretty high level, right? They've been playing the level of the NHL is really high. But pulling some points out of some of the top teams in the East that a lot of teams won't get, I would say are really beneficial in this kind of you're in the home stretch now. Now you can see the finish line. I think playoffs are just around the corner. These mean a lot for positioning, for home ice advantage. Happy with 500, but I'd like to see them do a little bit better.
Well, and you look at teams like Tampa Bay, teams like Florida, who have quite a showing here at the Four Nations face-off as well. You might find that you could pick some of these teams off at the right time because obviously a lot of Oilers have been rested.
You hope, yeah.
Tanned. Yeah. Okay, we've only got a few minutes left. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this matchup, the rematch. I think we can officially call it the rematch. And what has been a tournament that, yes, I think originally it was thought as, it's just going to be, tummy sticks and, being nice and having fun. And it's a glorified all-star game. Well, clearly it is not. And clearly these players are taking this as if they are representing their countries. What do you see, Cass? What do you see happening on Thursday? And let's throw a score projection out there. Loser, or somebody nails it, I'll buy you coffee.
Oh, sweet.
Okay, I'll buy you a fancy coffee, Cass, because I know you like fancy coffee.
I do like fancy coffee. Yeah, none of that Starbucks stuff either. Like I want a real fancy coffee from a real coffee shop that roasts.
We'll go to Roasty in Sherwood Park. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going for a score, going 3-2 Canada. I think it's going to be tightened down to the wire. Got to pick Canada because.
You got to, right?
You got to. And I just think we see a laser focused, laser tight game. Like it's going to be very low mistake hockey. I think it's, a little bit more goals than we saw on the Canadian side. I think they do solve Hellebuck a little bit, which is where I think you end up winning 3-2, but it's going to be tight. And the reality is it could go either way. And I would be disappointed, but regardless, I think it's going to be an absolute blast. Like it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be fast. There's going to be very few mistakes. And it's going to be great hockey. So yeah, going 3-2 Canada. I don't think you get more goals than that. I'm tempted to say 2-1 Canada, but it's going to be tight. Yeah. So 3-2 Canada.
Oh, well, of course I'm going to pick Canada, but I think that the final score of this game will be 4-3. I think that's that's what's going to decide it. It's just going to be so much fun to watch. I think that, like you said, Cass, it's going to be a lot of speed, a lot of skill. The defensive plays there's going to be tons of them, but I just think the plays that you're going to see is those ones that you might just have to tip your hat to the offensive player, because they made such a great play to generate a scoring chance or score the goal. It's like, okay, well, it's like Connor McDavid. Like, sometimes it's just there's nothing else you can do. I just can't wait. I can't wait for this. I love to feel that anxiety before a game with a team that I want to win. I know I don't get that much anymore.
Sure.
So I'll be on pins and needles watching this game, and I just can't wait. It's this has been I can't remember how long it's been since I've been this engaged over a period of time where usually there's an all-star game.
Well, Troll chimes in, says 2-1 Canada in overtime. Crosby to McDavid. Torch pass. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be good.
Speaking of McDavid, I mean, we didn't really touch on him. And I know nobody said he's overachieved, because, we get to see him every week. But I wonder what this, everybody knew Connor McDavid was a superstar, or is a superstar. Do you think his stock has risen, particularly with Canada fans that don't get to see him night in, night out? Cass, do you think that he's changed some people to say, wow, I didn't realize how amazing he was?
Yes, particularly in the Toronto region, in Ontario region. And then those same people are, wow, I didn't realize that Matthews was even better. Like the Matthews stock rose as well, where they're like, wow, he's really good. I can't believe that Matthews is also even better than I thought, because we know he's better than Connor McDavid. So,
of course,
just vicariously, Austin Matthews' stock has risen as well. I think a little bit. I don't think drastically. Realistically, I think most people are aware that he's probably the best player in the world, is what they think. And I mean, maybe this convinced some of those people with that opinion that, yes, he definitely is the best player in the world. So yeah, marginally, slimly, it's risen, but it was already really high.
It's funny because that first goal against the U.S. in Montreal, like you could, when he got it's funny that he got a pass from Doughty of all people, right? and just a lightning bolt, and you could hear the fans, right? You could hear the buzz, and everyone got so excited, and he scores that just gorgeous goal and shows all that exuberance and joy of scoring for his country, and it was funny. I felt like that's our boy.
Yeah,
I had a weird proud papa moment taking credit for Connor McDavid, which I have no stake in the game at all. But yep, that's our player. Enjoy Montreal, Canada. Enjoy what we see 82 times during the year, probably. Oh, more than that, certain points of the game where he just raises everyone out of their seats. And the one thing I was happy about was when Montreal fans saw it, they didn't have to worry, right? They could actually cheer for him.
Celebrate.
They could celebrate seeing him do something like that. So yeah, this is that was a really, really cool moment.
Okay, well, the predictions are locked in. I've got them written down here. I'm going to take a picture of them. I hope one of you two gets it, because I'd like to buy you a coffee. But this has been fantastic. You guys always babysit me very well. I really appreciate your camaraderie and your talking. We've got EST afternoons coming up next. Gager, what you guys got on tap? You gonna talk football or maybe some NBA All-Star?
Yeah, it was funny coming out of the Bond Spiel. I got in my car, hit the station. They were talking NFL. I'm like, what? Really? It's crazy. No, obviously we'll get into more of this game for Thursday. We'll talk a little Vladdy. See what's going on there. F1 has their livery reveals today, so we're going to see the cars and stuff.
Can't wait.
Heat and Smoke at 1:40. Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio this day in sports, and of course set you up for you and Maddie later on.
Yeah, Maddie's going to be joining me today. The one and only Reed Wilkins was forced to take a day off, so here we are. This has been Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction. You are listening to Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. For Matt Kassian, for Joaquin Gage, my name's Jay Milne. We'll catch you in a little bit.